Smack 'em McGob, we're back, and we ended like 5 days ago, and we haven't changed our clothes.
Nope, back. They're hanging out. They're hanging out still. Everybody's still here.
So if you missed it, you must check out part one of the White Album that we're talking about. The White Album from the Beatles, and let's get into this, man. We start with Birthday. You think that when they wrote this song, they thought we're going to get rid of Happy Birthday?
It was written to be like a functional song. I know that. And this was it was, I think, in the middle of the sessions. And a fun fact about the recording of the song Birthday. So they halted the session to go to Paul's house. Paul lived really close to Abbey Road, just like a couple blocks away. So they halted the session to go watch Girl Can't Help It. The movie was on TV that night, and you know, when stuff was on TV, you had to watch it when it came on. It wasn't like you just whatever.
No
So
VCRs.
it was on TV that night, so they went. It was Jane Mansfield and Little Richard and all that. So they went to watch that. So they had kind of worked out the song before, and then went to watch the movie. Came back after and finished the song. So it was all done in a day. And Yoko is singing backup on this one, and so is Patty Harrison, and they're kind of all the gang vocals and stuff.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because since this is not on the Easter demos, was this something they did in the studio as far as writing it?
Yeah, I think it might have happened all that day. I think Paul kind of might have come in with a session early, or may have had the idea at home and came in, but it was pretty much cobbled together in that day. Most of the work before the movie, watch the movie, come back and finish it.
I love the little intro drum fill from Ringo. Very underrated drummer.
The older I get, the more that Ringo is just the greatest. Nobody sounds like him.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of people make fun of him.
Sounds like.
Yeah, there's many people that make fun of his drumming, but man, what's his name? Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater. I mean, he praises Ringo as one of the greatest drummers. And
oh yeah, Mike's a big Beatles dude. Yeah, he's absolutely, yeah. I mean, he really is. I mean, nobody sounds like Ringo. He knew. I know a lot of it was the recording engineers and all that, but he knew how to hit his drums. They just sound so great. He knew how to play good parts. It wasn't just backbeat all the time. He was very creative in the studio and could execute parts. And if you listen to all the like alternate takes to all that are coming out now, very rarely did a take break down because of Ringo. And pretty much he was always rock solid. One of the other guys would forget a word or fumble a chord or something. It was rarely did Ringo ever kind of foul something up.
There's I believe it was in Washington, or you know, their first U.S. visit, when they're doing I start standing there and he's beating the crap out of that cymbal. That's some cool technical stuff.
The whole drum set is rocking back and forth because he's leaning into it, and it's their first American like full on show. They had done Ed Sullivan a couple nights prior, and then took the train to Washington before they went to Miami for the second appearance. And so and that was kind of their first, because in America there was bigger places to play in America. And they're still doing theaters in England. So that was almost kind of a smaller arena, but they were kind of in the round. And if you'd watch that again, they still, every few songs, they would rotate.
Yeah,
and rotate the mics around where they could play to everybody. And they're like, Ringo's moving his own drums. And it's just, you're like, wow. But
you see him like holding his back a little bit, like, oh man, help me here.
Yeah, the music industry had to catch up to how fast they were growing and what. I mean, they were, that second American tour in '64 when they came back and did more shows. They were doing 25,000 seaters on that one. And then the next one in '65 was when they went to stadiums. Shea Stadium, 60,000 people. The Gator Bowl, 50,000 people. So yeah, when they got to America, it just like blew wide open.
I got a really cool tidbit of me and the Beatles. I'm only 3 years shy of 60. I'm serious. I'm getting up there.
Damn.
I was born on February 9th, 1965. 1 year prior, on 1964, February 9th, you know it,
Yep.
the world changed.
That's yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's very cool.
Yeah, Ed Sullivan. They played Ed Sullivan, 1964, February 9th.
February 9th. Yep.
You know, I mean, because, everybody does it. In your birthday, what happened on my birthday? And that was like the big one. It was
Yeah.
like, that was the night they played, and, just to go back to that in a second, when they played Ed Sullivan, the Ed Sullivan show, that the crime rate went down while they were on TV.
Yeah, so even the criminals are watching. Yeah, where George said that. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Ain't that great? I had to grab my glasses because these texts are kind of small here. Your Blues.
Your Blues, another great John tune.
Yeah, a heavy tune that he did live on not only Canada, he played it in Canada, right? That
Did
live
Canada also with the Dirty Mac on the Rolling Stones Rock and Roll
yeah,
Circus.
yeah, the Rock and Roll Circus that I believe had Eric Clapton. Is Eric Clapton on this one? No.
No. The Dirty Mac was John, Clapton, Keith Richards, and Yoko and Mitch Mitchell.
You're talking about the Rolling Stones episode.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
Clapton was in the Dirty Mac, and then Clapton was in Canada at the Toronto show too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he was. He
Yeah.
was. And another little tidbit about that Rolling Stone show, the guitar player for Jethro Tull was Tony Iommi.
Tony, he was in the band for like 15 minutes.
Yeah, 15 minutes.
That was when he was in there. It was so cool.
And lucky enough, it was like they documented it,
Yeah.
Because I don't think he's played on any of his records, Jethro Tull albums.
No, I don't think so either. I think that was it. Yeah, he was in the band really like very short time.
I wonder if his fingers were chopped off at that point. That I'm not sure of.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
That.
I think it happened afterwards.
Yeah.
All right. Your Blues. If I was dead already, you know the reason why. Is there any thing behind those lyrics, or is it just him doing some?
Well, it could go to it because this was a India song too because he demos it at the Easter demos and it's all pretty much there. So I think it's like one of two angles. I'm not sure which one it is. So it could be he's in the ashram by himself, so lonely, want to die, and also keep in mind he and Yoko's affair has started when he went to India earlier that year. They had already started, not sure how long, but Cynthia also went with him. His wife went with him to the Maharishi's retreat. And they were in a bungalow together. Somewhere in the middle of the retreat, John requests his own bungalow. And so that was kind of like the writing on the wall for Cynthia. It's like, we're done. She knew Yoko, but she thought that it was just some crazy fan because John was like, oh, don't worry about her. She's just some crazy fan, but they had already begun their thing. So that's in John's head too. And then so either this is another cry out for help song, I'm so lonely I want to die song, or he's taking the piss out of the British blues bands. Like and writing the most typical blues lyric you can write. So lonely, want to die, and then doing the don't, the kind of dumbed down thing. So I don't know. Maybe a little bit of both with the musical. He might have been dumbing it down, like, okay, Cream, I can do this too, because that stuff was going, more of those British blues bands were popping up. So I don't know really the angle he had.
It's a good rocking tune, and then it just shifts into Mother Nature's Son, which, believe it or not, the first time I bought this, that was my favorite song on here. There was something about song. It's just so beautifully done.
Mine too. It was like when on first listening, younger days, that was one of the ones that just stuck out to me. It was just so great, and I had to learn that one too on acoustic guitar, so I can still play that one, and it's just so great.
Was that hard to learn, that one?
This one, but the way I did it was wrong. I had 3 fingers, but Paul used 2 and did that weird strumming thing. But it's just fun to play. Just a great song to play and sing, and I love that one. This one, you're right. This one and Blackbird are kind of
in the same realm.
Yeah.
But
great tune.
Beautiful, beautiful song. And that one goes into everybody back to some. Here's a theory I have about this song that not a lot of people. I think this is the first. I'm not saying it's a thrash song, but it has the thrash crunch.
It
Like,
really does.
gun, 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 gun. What sounded like that back then?
Yeah, like it was definitely like you had the Kinks at this point, you had the Who, you had the Yardbirds, but this had a heaviness to it that the Beatles didn't always show, with the really nasty guitar tone, and then the Harrison's guitar line. This could also be played really well with through loud Marshall amps. Great song, another Maharishi tune, because the come on, it's such a joy was all things that he said.
Yeah, I think everything on this song is what Maharishi said in his talks. Like
Maybe not about the monkey.
Yeah, maybe not that part, but
Where that comes from, but yeah, it's one of my favorite. Again, I love this song so much.
yeah, it's heavy, sporadic, and what Ringo's doing with the little, what is that, a bell or something? He's like,
Yeah. So there was a bell overdub in there somewhere. Yeah, or some kind of like an anvil or some kind of, I don't know what that was, but yeah, it's a great. I don't know. This is a great tune.
yeah, and then he slows it down with "Sexy Sadie." Another beautiful song. I love this one.
And the original title of this was Maharishi. What
Oh,
have you done? Because the reason George and John stayed the longest of the Beatles at the Maharishi's camp. I forgot how long they said, but they said the longest. And there was a rumor that may have been set up by Magic Alex. Remember the Magic Alex guy, that kind of hanger-on guy? It's not sure if it actually happened or if Magic Alex just started this rumor to get him out of there. That Maharishi was kind of made a pass at one of the, I think it was maybe Prudence Farrow, but that he was kind of like making a pass at one of the women at the ashram. So this got around to them, and then George and John actually confronted Maharishi about it. Maharishi's said no, and it wasn't like that or whatever. So John came back pretty disillusioned about the whole experience, about the whole thing. George kind of kept on the path. John was pretty turned off by the whole thing. And that's what this song is kind of about, that. But he figured Maharishi was a bit to the point and a little bit too blatant, so he changed it. But it's like you made a fool of everyone. That's definitely talking about
wow.
that. So when you listen to it and read the lyrics with it, put that in mind, because that's what it's about. But he didn't want to say Maharishi in the song.
Yeah, I do recall John saying something about that. Not rumor wise. I think he said it like it really happened.
Yeah, and it now, but it could have been just Magic Alex. Now it might have been a thing set up, like a rumor started by him, and he kind of got that going, or set the whole thing up, and so he may or may not have been involved. So I don't know.
Now,
He's passed away, so we'll never hear his story about it. So.
All right, the one that a lot of people call the first heavy metal song, Helter Skelter. And I know you know this, but I'll throw this tidbit in. Paul McCartney was reading in the paper one day, and he read that Pete Townshend said, "I just wrote the nastiest, heaviest song ever." And he didn't even, and the song Pete was talking about was "I Can See for Miles," but he didn't know. He hasn't heard the song yet.
Right.
So went, oh, I gotta beat him to it. Without hearing the song, Paul did a Helter Skelter, which is very like. But I also gotta say, everybody's got something to hide. I think it's as heavy.
It's as heavy. It isn't as noisy. That the thing
Right.
is, McCartney wanted to make something loud and noisy, and whereas why don't we do it in the road is, I think, raw and more rough, because it's just that this is heavier and definitely louder and noisier.
Yeah. And what is a Helter Skelter again? I know
It's a roller coaster.
It's a roller coaster.
Because it's actually what they call a roller coaster in England, and we didn't really know what it was over here, but that's what it is. And apparently, I've never heard this, and it's in a vault somewhere. Hopefully, one day will be released on the next time this gets re-released. Hopefully, we'll be alive to hear it. But there is a 27-minute version of this.
Wow.
It's the slow. I mean, it'd be hard to sit through because I've heard some slow blues versions of this that get quite boring, that aren't 27 minutes long. Some of those are on the deluxe sessions box of this one. But I kind of would, I'd like to hear it before I die. But yeah, I do love this tune. I'd hate that it's been covered so much. So I hate the cover versions of it.
Yeah.
And even when Paul plays it live, it isn't near as nasty as this. Lennon's bass playing is just beautiful, just garbage.
Wait. Lennon played bass on
Lennon
it?
plays bass on this, and there's a really cool, and there's actually you can solo it out. You can find it on YouTube. It's just the bass tone is just like it sounds like it's coming through. It sounds like it's being like it's exploding. The bass sounds on fire, and it's just complete distortion and noise, and it's fucking beautiful. But it's beautiful in like the ugliest way. It's so great. And this song, I think one thing that is lacking in a lot of versions of it, even when Paul's live, is the cool backing vocals on this.
Yeah.
The backing vocals are so good. They're so good. You kind of, once you pay attention to them, they kind of get lost because it's so much going on and this happening and this screaming, and you got to really pay attention. But it's a really well arranged tune. But check out the backing vocals next time.
Total proto metal, I gotta say.
It really is, man. It is nasty and just out of tune, and it's awesome.
Like you said on the last episode, there's a lot of genres that were invented on this album.
Man, just it's insane when you go through and like even like Americana and indie rock and indie, all these different things are shooting off of this one record. It's amazing.
And then it gets this is a George song, right? Long.
Yeah, it gets really moody and very dark and very cool. I love this one.
Yeah, it's a really cool tune. Any story behind this one? Is this one that he wrote? Did George write stuff in India?
He did. This isn't on the Easter demos, I don't think.
No, it's not.
So this may be one he worked on later. And I really like, when I was listening to it today to prep for this one, I noticed the really great organ parts in here too. It's great drumming by Ringo, really great. And the song is so slow. And what I love about when they do a slow song like this, it isn't plotting. It stays slow, and Ringo never pushes. But it's just really great parts that Ringo puts in there. Big tom fills. All that stuff he's so good at. But really, it's haunting. And the little piece at the end, still terrifies me. I don't know why. I think that part is so scary. It just makes everything sound so evil and dark. Maybe it's because it's after Helter Skelter and there's the Manson thing again. And I don't know if it's in my own mind, but it puts a really, really, really dark turn on it. I mean, it's a heavy song anyway, but really, really creepy at the end.
And the lyrics are pretty much about being on a roller coaster, right? When I get to the top of the slide.
Oh, Helter Skelter. Yeah. Definitely. I was on the long.
Wait, I'm sorry. We're on the next song.
Sorry.
I don't know what I'm thinking.
But yeah, that's what the lyrics are about him going on when I get to the top and I go back up again. Yeah.
All right, then we got the acoustic version, Revolution 1, which I guess was the first one they recorded before the electric version, maybe?
Yeah, this was the first song recorded for the sessions. So on May 30th was the first day of the White Album sessions. This was the first song recorded.
Great. It's great. I can't tell you which one I like more, though.
It's awesome. I like the electric one, but I tell you what, I like the electric one they did the video for because they did the oh be doo backing vocals in there.
Yeah.
I love those in the acoustic version. I wish they would have put those in the single version is the electric one. That was the actual A side of the single. That's where that one went.
That video version is more distorted too. There's more distortion, dirty sound to it.
Yeah, it's such a great. I love that. I love that. I mean, they're miming the track and singing live, but it does give you a cool viewpoint of like them if they did some shows, like because they were talking about doing some shows um, instead of that. One of the things on the table, when they're talking about what actually was the Get Back project. One of the things they were talking about was going to like doing some small shows in England and doing some White Album songs, like
Oh,
the Roundhouse and venues like that around England. And I was like, man, how cool would that have been? Like doing I'm So Tired, like
oh,
that, like something like, and you can kind of see what it would look like in that video. And I love it for that reason. One of the main reasons I love that video is because like, wow, that would have looked like that. It would have been great, you know.
wouldn't it have been great like they did on Electric Show and then did a portion where they're all acoustic,
Yeah,
doing stuff like I'm So Tired, Mother Nature's Son. That would have been awesome.
that was on the table. That was one of the projects they had that was they were talked about, and that became the Get Back film we have now.
And one thing different lyrically about Revolution 1 is where he says, if you talk about destruction, you can count me out. And he says, in.
And yeah,
And they asked him, why he said that. And he said, because I may change my mind later. You know? So, who knows? Maybe I will be offered destruction later on.
Yeah, I love the fact he was so honest about that. He was like, "Well, I don't know now, and I probably won't know. I don't know in the future either." I love it.
All right, the next one, I don't think John said it, but I don't think John would be a fan of this one because this is like grandma music. But I love Honey Pie.
I love Honey Pie too, but I know Lennon always hated on Paul's Rudy Tooty grandma music. But if you're gonna play a guitar solo as good as John played in this song, because that's John,
Oh,
the
I didn't
little
know that.
short little lead, the little thing, he nailed it. I mean, he nailed the period. He nailed the tone. It is so perfect. It's like you can talk about hating something, but if you play something that well, you've got an affinity for it. And there's no way he hated, because he always said he didn't like jazz and all that kind of stuff, especially this kind of McCartney stuff. But listen to the guitar solo, nails it. But this is a little bit too
Yeah,
for me on the thing. But the clarinet arrangement's great. I mean, they really did nail the time period that he's going for.
this was like what 30s.
20s, 30s kind of thing. Yeah, which it really did nail it. I mean, the writing is perfect. His vocal delivery is perfect. Is it one of my favorites? No, I'm not a big guy of Paul's grandma music either. But listen to the guitar solo for it. It's really great. It's a great guitar solo. Very quick. It's like 2 bars. It's hardly there at all, but it's really good. Well done. Well done.
I think this was called ragtime music, maybe at the time. I'm not sure
It
what they.
might have been because it was a ragtime kind of tune. Yeah, that might have been right. That would be in this book over here. Yeah.
All right, the next one I gotta say, Beatles music is timeless. It's not. I don't listen to Beatles music and say, "Oh, this sounds like the '60s. This sounds this." It's just timeless.
Yeah.
But this next song, Savoy Truffle, is it's like a decade before this time because Savoy Truffle to me sounds like a '70s song.
Yeah, it does.
It's kind of like a Bowie type feel before
Yep.
Bowie was, popular in the '70s. And I love it. I love this song. It's got this cool little drum thing going on, and
Another great intro. The stutter kind of thing that Ringo does. Yeah. This one, the horn, the things that makes it for me, the saxophones are, and how jacked they are in the mix. And like the bell is in the microphone's inside the bell. It's like the saxes are like so front and center. And it's all about Eric Clapton's Sweet Tooth. It's all like chocolates and ice cream.
oh
The
yeah.
lyrics are all about desserts. Yeah.
But it's a really cool song, and every time that comes on, I'm like, man, it's like this is for the time when they recorded. This was futuristic.
Yeah, it really was. It really a good point. It's that definitely was of the future, kind of like a predator, like that kind of predicted what was going to happen.
Yeah,
Could have easily been on a Harrison '70s album.
yeah.
This version could have been like, oh yeah, well that fits perfect.
Savoy Truffle's awesome. All right, the next one is a little I'd love to know if you know some stuff behind Cry Baby Cry, because there's even like talk about the occult in the song. And
Yeah, I think that this is on the Easter demo, so I think that this was a Rishikesh tune. So this is one of the ones that John wrote there. I don't really know much about this one, except I really like the verse chord progression. I learned that, and I'm like, oh, that's a cool thing to do. But yeah, it's great lyrics. Yeah, I'm not sure what this is about. I don't know. I need to read up on this one.
yeah, no, I don't know what it's about either, but there's a little reference of like the occult, and I now I can't remember the line, like they were talking about they were summoning spirits or something. I can't remember now, but I
Yeah,
know it had something to do with occultish, and I was like, man, I wonder what's the story behind this song. So it's a mystery, this one.
yeah, I love that one. It's a kind of a happy tune.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and kind of melancholy too, at the same time.
yeah.
Um, Speaking of weird, is it possible, Phil, that you like Revolution 9?
I love Revolution 9.
You do.
I love it. I think it's it's an interesting fact. Revolution 9, John was working on that in one studio. This took a few days to do, obviously. One of the days, John was there. Paul was cutting Blackbird in another studio between studios 2 and 3 in Abbey Road. I absolutely love it. It is, it is as out there as anything was.
Oh, it's not a song though. I mean, it's
Yeah, it's see, this is the kind of stuff that McCartney was into in '66. Because this is where he got into tape loops. Because McCartney was the guy that brought tape loops and doing that and experimental music into the Beatles. It was Paul. Because all the other three guys had moved out of London in '66 when they had that time off. Paul was still a single bachelor in London. So he was immersed in the avant-garde art scene. And so this was already going on in that, but it was in that very snooty kind of like artsy circle. It wasn't on any pop records at all. So when they brought it in, that was Tomorrow Never Knows was the first time they've used it on, in a pop record. But they used it in context of a song. And they still used tape loops on Pepper stuff and some stuff that was on Magical Mystery Tour. But this is the first time on a Beatles album that they went this far. Interesting fact, 11 days before the release of the White Album was the release of Two Virgins. 11 days before. So November 11th, that came out. And that's another piece like this. It's John and Yoko doing experimental music. So that was already out there on that record. And then John and Yoko, and George helped on this one too. El Dorado, saying things like that, it says George. But so yeah, Revolution 9 was the first time that a pop record had ever gotten this fucking out there.
Yeah, I mean, it is out there.
It's
And play it backwards, it says "Turn Me On, Dead Man."
yeah, exactly. Yeah, number 9. I love my favorite parts of it are John reading like financial imbalance, Watusi. What does he say? Something, brother, may it serve you well. Well, that just cracks me up every time I hear it. It's so funny.
I even though she's not credited, I would think Joko probably should get like some kind of writing credit for this, because don't you think that she
Sure.
had something to do with this?
Oh, sure. Yeah, she was helping John like the whole time assemble tapes, and John kind of produced this himself. George was around, but I mean, George wasn't helping. George Martin wasn't helping with this one. George Harrison was helping a little bit, but during this, actually, George and Ringo had flown to L.A. for some Apple business, and John was just kind of left to his own thing, and he was kind of doing it by himself. Paul didn't sure as hell didn't have anything to do with it.
Really?
But it still is Lennon. It was Lennon and McCartney. But Paul heard the whole thing as a finished product.
I mean, I know what you said earlier. He was recording Blackbird in another studio, but I think since he was into this stuff, he might have had some input in telling John, "Oh, throw that in there,"
Yeah, this was John's baby as far as like picking sounds and I don't know how. I mean, as out there as it is and just tape loops, I don't know how you begin to compose something like this. Because it was some pre-recorded stuff that he found and liked and cut up and spliced together, and some that he some sounds that he made, like the reading the stuff. And there's also some parts of A Day in the Life like backwards and Mellotron parts flipped around. So there's a lot to making something like that, even though it isn't typical music as we think of it. It's like, it's completely experimental and avant-garde, but there's a lot to it. And if you read like in the Mark Lewison book, this one, it takes you through day by day of the recording of their whole career. So when you get to this stuff, and it shows tells you what John did on each day for Revolution 9, and it kind of puts it in a different light. And you're like, wow, that actually is kind of, a performance. Because he was running loops constantly, and he was like fading things in at different times when he thought they should go there, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of impressive. Makes you kind of like it more. I think it's great.
Is there a meaning behind number 9? Them saying it?
I think he found that guy saying it, and I'm not even sure who it is or what context it is, and he thought it was funny, and that's where it came from. Yeah. I think it's really cool. Towards the end of the album, good sequencing.
And then Good Night.
Yeah.
Another Ringo's. What do you think of this one?
I love it. It's a Lennon written tune. I like the demo version of him playing it on acoustic guitar a little more than the schmaltzy, thick strings. It's more, I don't know, it's kind of a little bit sweeter when it's just John.
Was that ever released, the acoustic version?
Yeah, it's on.
Not on Anthology.
It isn't on the Easter demos, but yeah, there is. I think on the Super Monster Baby Deluxe version of this, on some of the outtakes, it's on there.
Okay,
it's really, really nice. It's a really pretty version, and the string arrangement's amazing, but that can be a bit schmaltzy and a bit too lush sometimes. And I really like the song is when it was John on acoustic and Ringo singing it, because Ringo's got a great voice for this type of stuff.
Yeah, I like to hear it. I'm not too crazy about it. For me, Cry Baby Cry is the end of the album for me. I mean,
yeah, I get it.
Revolution number 9, believe it or not, I might have heard it back then when I first got it. I don't think I ever sat through the whole thing till a few days ago. When you hit me up saying, "Hey, I was like, man, I was like listening to it. I was like, let me listen to Revolution 9 all the way through, because I don't think I ever have, because it's pretty lengthy, isn't it?
It's long on with headphones on. It's fantastic. it's they went crazy with the panning and the newer the 2018 mix and version of it's great, and it's a good headphone song.
That's what this is right here, the 2018, even though it has the number as you saw.
Yeah.
Where I believe Ringo auctioned his, which was I think number 1 or 2 for some charity thing.
Oh wow! I know when you get the low numbered ones, man, those are rare and hard to come by. I'd like to have a numbered one from the 60s pressing. I've never had one. I had a white vinyl one that Capitol printed for the 10th anniversary, and I stupidly got rid of that a long time ago, probably for nothing. So, oh well.
And pre-Kiss, I mean, they threw in goodies.
They did.
Posters and pictures, and
they did. They followed the Sergeant Pepper had the badge.
Yeah, the badge.
So yeah, they got a poster, the cool poster, and the pictures. So yeah, good package.
Lyrics, amazing. All right, so we're done, but we're not going to go through the E.S.S.R. demos.
Bonus track time.
Where you have obviously more than I do, because the vinyl has more of or is it that super duper deluxe version one?
I'm not sure if our E.S.S.R. demos might match, because you have the CD one.
Yeah,
I bet it's the same thing, because on the super deluxe version it does the album, and then it does the E.S.S.R. demos, and then the sessions start. So I think ours may match.
Are the session stuff like full songs, or just them working on it?
It's like the Revolver thing.
Okay.
It's like just them working on stuff and different takes and breakdowns and different versions of stuff.
Well,
Early takes.
okay. Well, I'll read off the songs and tell me if they matches yours. The first one is Back in the U.S.S.R. Of course, all
Yeah.
acoustic.
Which is cool. I like how they arranged it because they arranged it like in order of the record.
Yeah,
So that was a good call, I think.
and it's fun. It's a good version.
It's
Now,
you can tell it's Paul singing. It's Paul kind of overdubbing on his own track, but it's really cool, fun to hear.
even though I would say I prefer what came on the album, let's say they never did put you Back in USSR as we know it and put this in there instead, I think it still would have worked.
It's a cool. It's what the cool thing about this is how good the songs already are, and with one guy singing, playing acoustic, like everything's already there. That's a special talent to be able to write and to pull something like that off. It really, really is.
No, it's awesome. Yeah, and it has that's the thing I love about the listening to this today. It was like, man, it's like listening to like the embryonic version of these songs, but they're yet catchy. Though I will say when we get to them, I'll say, yeah, this doesn't work as good as what happened on the album.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't translate as well acoustically, but Dear Prudence did.
It's fantastic. It's there. It's like he kind of does a cool thing at the end where he's like strumming and he goes faster a little bit. That was kind of neat, but the song definitely came out about as perfect as you can produce a song on the White Album version. It's just a masterpiece. But this is a great to hear. You know.
Yeah, and while I was listening to this today, I mean, maybe you correct me. I don't think any of these versions ended up on Anthology.
I haven't heard that in so long that I'm not sure. I
Yeah,
haven't listened to that anthology in forever.
yeah, because Glass Onion, which is the next tune,
Yeah.
they do have a couple versions on Anthology. One is acoustic, but this one's different.
This is like this is the total embryo of that tune.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And this is the one that you did need the electrified version to really get the point across and to do it. The other two were cool acoustic. This is cool to hear, but definitely it needed to be rocked up.
Yeah, and Obladi is definitely different because on the Anthology version, John screams out "Obladi, honey" or something like that at the end.
Totally.
This does not have it. But again, I think this song really works acoustically.
It does. It really does. It's a fun tune, and you got to remember that they're three. The three of them are at George's place together doing this, and so this is probably the first time the other Beatles are hearing these songs. So they might not have hated that one yet. At first play.
And I mean, it's acoustic, kind of acoustic on continuing story of Bungalow Bill.
Yeah.
This one's kind of probably the closest
Yeah.
to the album version, which is again, I think it works.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, it's like when you think about the album version, it's not too much more than the basic, than this. Which is good version.
And the version I prefer, which is different in the anthology version, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Because I guess what you were saying earlier, they did a lot of takes, huh?
Yeah. At this point, when they got to this, they were doing 50, 60 takes of songs.
Yeah.
I don't know how many takes they did of this one. I love this version. One, I gotta talk about this this version with this moment that I had. So I got to go to Liverpool this past summer when I was on tour with Accept, and we had a 2-week break. So instead of coming home, I stayed in Europe, and so I went to Liverpool. Never been before. So I got introduced to a drummer named Chris Sherrick, and Chris is Noel Gallagher's drummer. He was in BDI with Liam. He was in Oasis for a second too, and he was in the Laws, World Party. He's got all these list of British rock bands he's been a drummer in. It's an insane resume. He's also the Ringo in the Cavern Club Beatles.
Oh wow!
So I got introduced to him through a mutual friend, And so he got me and a couple other people on the list for to go to the Cavern Club on the weekend and see the tribute band play, which is a hot ticket in town. It's always packed, and you got to get in line. And I was in there. So, and they're phenomenal, right? So they do the whole costume changes and everything like they do. They come
They
back.
do later Beatles in the
They do
Cavern.
later Beatles too, which I didn't know if they were just going to be Cavern, like, you know, vests and no jackets, you know, that kind of thing. But they do the whole career. So, and they each have a featured solo spot. So the George guys is in this kind of, you know, 68, 69 section. And he did this version by himself. And I wish I could have recorded it, but I couldn't move.
Was that packed?
It was perfect. It was like George. I couldn't physically move and get my camera because it was like I was watching him do it. I've never heard it. He sounded exactly like him, and he played the way he was doing it. It was the U.S.S.R demo completely. You would have thought that he was miming to the U.S.S.R demo. It was perfect, and I would kill for a recording of that, but I couldn't move to get my camera. It was absolutely incredible. The guy's name is Paul Jones that plays George. I got to meet the guys afterwards, and I was totally overzealous American crazy fan and probably talked their ears off, but I was just like, that was the highlight of the fucking show. Couldn't believe that they did it. And they were super nice guys. And but that's why I can't tell if I like this version better than the one that's actually on the record. It's definitely a tie or a toss-up for me. I love this version of it. And it's got a great extra verse that I'm sitting here doing nothing but aging line. They didn't make it in the last one, which I love that line. So there's some extra words too.
Did you do the tour? There's a tour at Liverpool, right, where you can go.
I did it where you ride on the Magical Mystery Tour bus.
Oh, that's what it is. It's actually,
yeah. They have it. It's not the real one, but this
I know, but
it's painted up just like it, and
wow.
they take you to all these spots. I did that actually twice, but I kind of had my own spots to go to. I went to the Casbah Coffee Club. I stayed really close to the city center, like Matthew Street, where the Beatles center stuff is. So I was there for 5 days. So I did everything I could do. The only thing I didn't know you could get inside Paul's and John's childhood homes. And by the time I learned that you could, the tours were all booked up. So I didn't get to do that. So next time I'll go and do the National Trust tour where you go in and tour them. We saw the outsides of them, but we didn't get to go in.
When you went to the Cavern, did it have that same look that from all those footages we've seen and the black and white footages? Like you going down the stairs?
Yeah, it does. It isn't the same Cavern.
Oh, it's not.
They had to move it down the block.
Okay.
In the 70s, and it isn't because in the 70s, British Rail demolished it. They're like, we're going to put something through here. So they demolished it. So what they did was they took the bricks from the original Cavern and they rebuilt it at the end of the block.
To make it look just like the old Cavern?
Look just like it. So you still walk down, and they've got the original entrance marked, but you can't. It's just like a kind of a plaque and a picture, a life-size picture of girls in line for a Beatles show. But so if you go just past that, it's only like a couple storefronts past it on the same side of this, on the same side. It's right there. And it's the same thing. You walk down, the steps and you get down there and like, wow, and it's painted, the behind the stage is painted just like the one was. So they did a really, really good job of recreating it. And it is very cool going there. And that's where I watched. They have a side room where so the Beatles that I saw didn't play on the stage. It looks like the old Cavern Club. There's a side room where they played. I think their gear stays set up there all the time. But yeah, it was fun, and it's worth doing the tour. It's worth going to the Cavern, even though it isn't the same building. But the Casbah Coffee Club, that's the same building.
Oh wow!
That was in the house where Mona Best owned it, and that's where they helped paint it. And the paint they painted is still on the ceiling. It's still on the walls. I mean, was really heavy going into that place because that's the same building, the same paint. It's untouched.
When with the footage I've seen of the Cavern, it looks like a very small place. Was it small?
It's really small.
Okay.
It's really small, and I think they tried to keep it the same dimensions too. And it's just like, a lot of brick archways. And when you look at old footage, it's just packed full of kids, all smoking cigarettes, no ventilation. And, it wasn't, it would have been shut down immediately if it went around now, but, it gets so hot in there, condensation would form on the bricks and fall down. And yeah, it's kind of a dive, it's not as divey. The new one isn't as divey. They definitely made it more like tourist friendly, and well, I bet when it gets packed in there, it gets pretty hot still.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, ventilation or air conditioning?
Yeah, they've got it's modernized. They didn't kind of keep it, but they kind of kept the look and the feel pretty, pretty like it. The only difference was it was in color, and all the shots were black and white.
Exactly. Yeah, that would be the weird part.
Yeah.
Cheap Trick played there not too long ago. Well, a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Cheap Trick, and they've had who else? I think Oasis may have played there, like in the side room, or Noel Gallagher may have played there in the side room. But yeah, a bunch of bands have played there.
By the way, I am a huge Oasis fan.
I am too. I was then. I still love them now.
I went to New Orleans to see Noel Gallagher solo.
Never seen him solo. I saw Oasis like 3 or 4 times.
I've seen him twice. They only came down here twice.
It was great, but I haven't seen Noel solo.
Yeah, I love his solo material, even though he's going off on a little tangent. But his first few ones were just so amazing.
I like the new one with Johnny Marr. I really like a lot.
The song that new song that he released. Yeah, he's got an album coming out next year. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, I'm a big Johnny Marr fan too. But them two together, I was pretty excited about.
Very, very interesting and intricate guitar player that guy is.
Yeah.
I would say I didn't know nothing about the Smiths till my guitar player was a big Smiths fan and started playing me some of their stuff.
He was doing all that as a teenager. I mean, they formed as school friends, and it's staggering, the layers and all the little things he put on there. He's a genius.
Yeah, he is a unique guitar player.
Yeah.
All right, so what's next after that was Happiness is a Warm Gun, which I like it, don't get me wrong, but I think it doesn't work as well as what?
It's in a very early stage because he hasn't figured out the time signatures yet. He knows it's going to be weird. He's just kind of singing the Mother Superior jumped the gun.
Yeah, it's just that little section.
Random. He's just kind of like coming in. And it's funny because he's overdubbing a vocal and he's all singing not at the same time because there's no click track. He's just playing, that was so cool about these demos is they're just sitting there by themselves, doing it on their own, engineering by themselves, setting up mics on the floor, and playing. It's just a cool thing to visualize them sitting around doing it themselves like this.
Yeah, it's still cool. I love I'm So Tired, though. Even though I prefer actually everything on the White Album, with the exception of While My Guitar. But I'm So Tired is still awesome.
I'm So Tired's great. It came out awesome. Yeah, this one, this one and Blackbird, both, Blackbird was kind of there too. It was those work well either way.
And Piggies too. I mean, even though it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, it's nice to hear it, that version.
Yep.
And again, Rocky Raccoon, definitely not the anthology version because he doesn't flub the lyrics at all.
Yeah, because that one I think was a take in Abbey Road, like they were recording there. So this one is just one of the first versions.
Right on. And Julia, another not too different, but you can tell nuances. Your Blue is definitely different.
I like this too. It's fun to hear. Just
it works.
It does work very well.
Yeah, Mother Nature's Son as well. Very exactly like that version. Everybody's Got Something to Hide is very different. I don't think it really works as good as what they ended up putting on the record, but it's still so interesting to hear. So far we have the same track listing, right?
Yeah, yep.
All
I
right,
think
then
we're gonna match.
Sexy Sadie, really cool. I dig that version too. Revolution, Honey Pie, Cry Baby Cry.
Honey Pie's cool to hear on guitar.
What's that?
I like Honey Pie on guitar. It was cool to hear the piano version.
And then a song that they didn't release called Sour Milk Sea.
So Sour Milk Sea is where this one turned into Savoy Truffle. Because
Yeah.
you can definitely hear some melody similarities. Now, Sour Milk Sea actually got recorded by Jackie Lomax. Jackie Lomax, I should have got the record. I got the record over there. Jackie Lomax is one of the first artists signed to Apple, right around this time, actually. So they cut, and George produced Jackie's record. And that version is great. It's a great Jackie Lomax record. It's a great record. The backing band on this track on Jackie Lomax's record is Ringo, George, Paul, and Eric Clapton.
Wow.
And so it's really cool to hear that. It's a rockin' version. It's a great song. They pretty much do it like this, but just with full electric band.
Interesting.
It's killer. Everybody should get that Jack. I meant to pull out the record for this to show it because it's a really great record. He had a cool voice, good song. The whole record's good. Check it out, Jackie Lomax.
That was the first artist signed to Apple Records?
Oh, it was one of the first. I forget. I don't know because James Taylor was signed really early. They got Badfinger.
Yeah, I was thinking it was Badfinger.
The Ivies they were called then.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jackie Lomax, Mary Hopkin was in there too. But he was in the first group of signings. Good record. Good record.
Yeah, and the next one ended up on a Paul McCartney solo album.
The very first one, yeah.
With the Berries.
Yep, yeah.
I love this song. This song is beautiful.
It's cool, and it's really cool when you first heard it. And you're like, oh, he had it back then. He didn't know where this song came from. But yeah, it's a cool little tune.
Yeah, just like Child of Nature ended up being Jealous Guy.
Jealous Guy. That was a big shocker. That definitely. The Jealous Guy lyrics, I definitely prefer that to this, for sure. But the music's the same. It's like he knew he had something, and it wasn't quite there. I'm glad he held off and did Jealous Guy.
Circles. That one's interesting.
Very slow and dramatic one of George. It's cool, but.
It is cool, but listening to it, you can understand why they shelved it.
Right? Yeah, totally.
But it's cool. And then we got some Abbey Road stuff.
Yeah.
With Mean Mr. Mustard and Polythene Sam.
Yeah, I like. Isn't in Mustard the one where he can't figure out the chords? Where he keeps on going.
Yeah.
Like, let's go somewhere else. But those are really fun to hear that he had those sitting around too.
Now, Not Guilty. I mean, I've heard this. I've heard this on several. But this was this ever a B-side or anything?
No, this didn't get recorded until one of the Harrison records, like well into the 70s. It wasn't on All Things Must Pass. I forget which record it is on, but they did over 100 takes of this one.
Wow.
On the White, because they were doing it in the White Album sessions, but. When you look at it lyrically, never gonna fly because it was George. Because the whole Maharishi thing was George's kind of idea, right? He was the one that was like, we got to go hear this guy, and they all got into him on George's kind of like, come on, guys, we got to go hear this guy. And then when the whole thing kind of fell apart, I kind of blamed George a little bit. Probably he was just like, not guilty for leading you astray on the way to Mandalay, like all that stuff. It was like he wasn't. He even throws in the line, upset the apple cart.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
He's talking about them, and you're like, right. That's not going to fly. So that kind of got shelved, but they definitely worked on it a lot. I think it's a really cool, the burn iron out, a little cool guitar lick. I love it.
I don't know where I first heard this, but I know I heard this even before the anthology. Not Guilty was. Oh, no, I'm sorry. You know what I'm thinking of? Old Brown Shoes.
Oh, okay. Old Brown Shoes. Yeah.
Yeah,
But this one got remade by George, but again, I can't think of what record it actually ended up on. But I like the Beatles versions of it, like because there's a few I think on the there should be some on the oh wait, there's not. Oh yeah, there is. Okay, Take 102 is on the
wow.
it's on here in the Super Deluxe set. But I like the version of it.
Man, you think they have all those tapes somewhere? Probably.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yep. They just rolled. They rolled tape, and they could afford it, and they just kept it rolling. I think some stuff got erased, but not much. They still have pretty much all of it.
Now, the last one I first heard on Beatles
Past Masters.
Past Masters,
Yeah.
which this is a very slower version. I mean, shorter version. Odd tune. What's the name? Is there a story behind this? Because it's very odd.
I can't remember. I've listened to some podcasts about this, and they talk about this one, and also they talk about "You Know My Name, Look Up the Number," because these two songs kind of go together as like kind of like almost kind of novelty songs. And the final version of this one is definitely a novelty song. It's just kind of very strange, but I can't really think of like what started this one and what it meant. And he never says the title in the song. What name Mary Jane had a thing at the party.
Yeah.
It kind of goes on and on.
And I do want to thank you because you're going to plug this because you sent me a link to a really cool Beatles podcast that I go to bed every night to it. I listen to it while I go to bed. I listen to already like Rubber Soul. I listen to the Abbey Road one, the White Album one. So many of them. And these guys are great.
It's called Nothing Is Real, and it's on Apple Podcasts or whatever you listen to your podcast. And it's two Irish Beatle experts, and it's great not only because it's great Beatles footage, but their accents are fantastic too. I love how they speak. But these guys know their shit, and they go down the deepest rabbit holes. There's once you get into the series, there's a lot of them too. There's a 4-part Alan Klein series, and it's fascinating.
Oh wow!
And there's a 2 or 3-part Brian Epstein group. They do like 2 hours on one song, and they'll break down certain years in the Beatles years and solo years, and they'll kind of trace what they all were up to, and it's absolutely fascinating. So if you're Beatle people, you will really, really like that. It's I think I'm caught up. I think they may have one more new one that I got to go find, but it's a great podcast called Nothing Is Real.
Yeah, every night I lay down, I put that on, and I go to sleep to listening to those guys talk. I've done it every night since you gave me that link.
Oh, awesome! Good, man. I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, all my Beatle people friends, I've sent that. It's like, you got to start this. It's so good. I went back to the beginning and then started that way. So I finally got current.
Well, so our songs matched up on the Ether demos?
Yeah.
Nothing extra. That's the vinyl.
Yeah.
So what exactly is that Super Deluxe? Because that's what I wanted to buy and it got jacked up.
The Super Deluxe,
an extra disc or something?
The Super Deluxe is the one that has the outtakes, the earlier the session recordings, and it has the surround mix of the Wild, which I kind of want to buy it because of that, because I've heard the surround mix from people they said it's fantastic.
Just hold up a little, man, because it was under $200 like a month ago, and I was gonna buy it, and I saw it jacked it up to almost 300. I was like, oh damn, I missed out.
Before we started talking about doing this, I was going to get it. I looked, it's like 260. It's like, well, hold off a little bit. There's not many left, I think.
That's why
the Pepper one's hard to get too. So, because the Pepper one was the first one they did, that Giles Martin did, that they did a surround mix. But you can get the surround mix. You can listen to on spatial audio on Apple Music if you have Apple Music. The White Album you can't. They don't have that one on here yet. So that's why that was kind of being sought after.
So yeah, the wise thing is get it while you can, because like the mono box set is extremely expensive now. I got lucky on that one.
I think it's like $2,000 now.
Really, that
Yeah,
much?
yeah.
Got it for almost half the price.
Oh man.
FYE was going out of sale, out of business. Well, his store was, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was 50% off, and I was like, I'll take that. And that was when it was fairly new. Maybe it was out like a year, you know.
And it was pretty reasonable when you look at what you got. And I was like, I'm an idiot for not picking one of those up. 'Cause I remember seeing one on like in a record store, and I was like, oh, that's too pricey.
And the book is amazing in there.
The thing about all the Beatles reissues and the deluxe this and that is they treat it like holy scripture.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to give it the best treatment. The books can be sold in these deluxes in the boxes on their own. I mean, they could put a book out of just those and sell it, and it would sell. The detail, it gives you what people like us want to read about, like all the information about the sessions and what they did, what they had for breakfast that day, and like all that stuff. It's so well done, and you know it's always going to be treated with that kind of reverence.
You know, it's interesting about the mono box set. It's not completely packed. So if you want to put the non-mono albums, it fits perfect in there.
So the White Album was the last one mixed in mono, right? Okay.
Yes.
I've never heard the mono mix of that.
Yeah, so you can fit Let It Be and Abbey Road in there. Was there another one? Was the Yellow Submarine in that one? I can't remember.
Yellow Submarine came out
After White Album?
No, it had to come out before because this came out in November,
Okay.
late November. So I had to do before. So that was still mono, probably mono and stereo. This is mono and stereo, and then Abbey Road was and then stereo only.
Awesome. Well, Phil, man, again, I think this was even a better episode.
Awesome, man. Great. We stayed on topic very well. It was great. Good. It was
and we are gonna do every Beatles album. I suggested to Phil earlier, Help would be a cool one to do because I feel that's so underrated.
It's a sleeper. It really is. It gets left out of a lot of conversations about top albums, and when you look at the song listing, it's solid, man. It stands up to any of them.
It's an amazing album, and that will be the next one. So I can't thank you enough, Phil, for being part of my channel.
This is a blast for me. It's a pleasure to do this. Really, it really is.
So I look forward to the next one, my friend. So I will, and it'll probably be next month. You know, beginning of next, if you're free, because I know you got things going on. So do I. We're both, oddly enough, we're both moving to different places. Huh?
Where are you moving?
This is all right. I'll have to disclose. You know, this is bad, Phil. I'll make it short. I'm moving in with my parents for a year.
Yeah.
They're demolishing this house and rebuilding it.
Ah, okay.
So I got to stay with my parents for a year. So it's going to be quite a different scene next time we take it. It'll be one of those things where I tell my parents, I need you all to be quiet. I got to do a show now.
Exactly. When are you moving? Next year or this year?
Yeah, it's going to be next year, January, in a month from now. And I mean, hopefully, because we need to get the permits from the city to tear down the house. And we already put in all the paperwork.
Sure.
We're just waiting. But we're going to make this house much bigger.
Nice.
And it's going to be better. But I'm not looking forward to living with I love my parents, but I don't like living with them. You know?
Exactly. That's okay. You can do that. It's okay. Yeah, I'm moving. It'll be early March for me when I'm moving.
Okay, so so yours is far ahead.
But I got to do it all now because I leave after Christmas for Europe, and I don't get back until a week before my lease is up.
Oh, okay.
So I've got to do it I've got to move in 3 weeks. That's why we're doing all these KISS auctions, like selling all my stuff, selling guitars, donating guitars.
Plug that. When is the next one?
The next KISS auction is going to be December 14th.
Okay.
And so I think I can get the rest of my stuff in one if I really move it. I'm also probably going to sell, if anybody's seen me play my white Flying V, my number 33 Flying V, I'm going to sell that guitar too. But yeah, so tune in on the KISS Live auction group. December 14th, me and Ryan and Jeremy will be back with you slinging Kiss stuff.
And send me a link so I can add it to the description below.
I will.
The description below. I'll even put the date and the time so you all can, because I got a boatload of Kiss fans on here.
6 p.m. Central Time, USA.
Right on. All right, Phil. Great talking to you once again. And thank you for all the minutia that I didn't know. It's always a blast talking to you about the Beatles, man.
Love it. I'll do it. And the new Metallica song kicks ass, huh?
Yes.
Get that in before we got done.
Yeah. It's awesome. Very Kill 'Em All meets Diamond Head. Awesome stuff, man. Right on, Phil. So tune in next month. And if you haven't seen part 1, you need to see part 1 of this. And chock full of great information on the Beatles. Yep. So thanks again, Phil, and you have a great night, my friend.
Thank you, Ralph. You too. Good night. Good night, everybody.